I am the Doctor.
Oh, I don't watch GMTV.
No. No, I'm the Doctor in the TARDIS. Yes, I've travelled through space and time.
Oh.
I've seen you in the year 2010.
Oh.
You're still on television.
Am I? Oh, am I doing serious programmes?
No, I said I travelled through space and time. I don't visit Fantasy Island.
All right. Ha! You're the Doctor.
You're absolutely right. I heard he was thick. I thought they were talking about his waist.
This is great. We've been looking forward to seeing you in your new adventure, Dimensions in Time.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing it myself. Yes, I'm in it, you know, with all the other doctors and a lot of my wonderful companions.
Great. You'll need a pair of these.
Oh, will I?
These are the new 3D specs that
Well,
you've got to
thank you
wear
so
for
much.
this. And all the villagers from Crickley Bottom, put your specs on, please. There they go. Right, I hope you've got your specs ready. Don't let the sight of them put you off. We've got a fantastic Doctor Who adventure, Dimensions in Time. And remember, you can influence the outcome.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Hello, I'm Scott.
Hello, Scott. This week, we are looking at a very special episode of Doctor Who, called Dimensions in Time, which aired in 1993 for children in need and was part of the 30th anniversary for Doctor Who, wasn't it?
Yes, it's almost...
Yes.
We're approaching the 30th anniversary of the 30th anniversary. How meta does that get?
God. Yeah. I hope they recreate this shot for shot. But Dimensions in Time first aired on the 26th of November 1993, which was a staggering 29 years, 3 months, and 16 days ago at the time of me writing these notes, I think. Yeah, that's today. I wrote these notes today. So, today... That's the day of recording, which is the 12th of March, and it was a Friday. At the time, the US president was one Bill Clinton, famous saxophonist, and the UK Prime Minister was Sir John Major, famous for never playing the saxophone. There was... Sorry, made myself laugh. There was nothing like major news-wise that happened on this day, except for like somebody's like secretary or something got married for the president or something like that. It was really boring news. But I do have the number 1 and the number 2 of the US box office, Scott, and I would love if you could guess what they were.
1993.
93.
I know.
Cast your mind back to November 1993.
I know. Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, even though it wasn't directed by Tim Burton, it was directed by Henry Selick, was released around this time. Am I close?
You are close in that you've absolutely nailed number 2. Number 2 is The Nightmare Before Christmas. But what's number 1? What is beating The Nightmare Before Christmas?
What else came out in Jurassic Park, Demolition Man?
Demolition Man was like number 7.
Oh, God. Number 1, 1993, November 22nd, 1990.
It's not going to be a movie you expect.
The Incredible Hulk.
No, that would be mental.
But unexpected.
Yeah, true.
Give me a hint.
There was a TV show,
The Fugitive.
starring Peter Capaldi that came out not too long ago, with the same title.
The Devil's Hour?
Nope.
No.
By not too long ago, I mean like 6 years.
Doctor Who. Peter Capaldi. The Thick of It?
No, there's a Kingdom Hearts world. Or not so much there is a Kingdom Hearts world in Dream Drop Distance.
Aladdin.
No.
No?
Do you give up?
Yeah, I give up.
It's The Three Musketeers.
Oh. Right, okay, the Three
do my clues.
Musketeers, yeah.
Yeah, do all my clues work now? You know,
Yeah.
the Peter Capaldi Musketeers show, like
Yeah, that's a show
you
Peter
know?
Capaldi did before Doctor Who, not 6
Yes.
years ago. So it's like
I
10 years
Peter
ago. At this
Capaldi.
point.
What do you mean? Peter Capaldi was the Doctor last year. Wait, like, yeah, I don't think it's a movie I've ever seen. It looks garbage, but it
Who was
was
in it?
produced. Oh God, who was in it? I don't think anybody huge.
Is Antonio? No, I'm thinking of Mask of Zorro.
Yeah, you're thinking of Zorro, which is way better.
I've not seen it either.
Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen and Chris
Oh, God,
O'Donnell and
24
Tim Curry.
2.5 Man. Tim Curry.
What an
No, that's,
what an amazing cast!
Tim Curry is
It's
an
got-
automatic sell.
It's got Tim Curry, it's got the Human Torch, it's got Charlie Sheen and Kiefer Sutherland in it. And it's got a solid 30% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I bet you if I watch the Tim Curry scenes on YouTube, I'll have a blast.
Its starry trio of do-gooders may promise to fight one for all and all for one, but this Three Musketeers is a slickly unmemorable update bound to satisfy very few.
Oh, speaking
Fantastic.
of Tim Curry, though, Tim Curry ties into the #1 song, technically. The #1 song in this
Yeah.
day in history. The singer of this song co-starred with Tim Curry in a movie.
Oh. Okay. I don't know Tim Curry movies very well off the top of my head.
The singer of this song would be singing about Saturday nights.
Oh. Is it Meatloaf? That's the only thing I can think of.
Meatloaf.
singer-wise.
Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Meatloaf. I Would Do Anything for Love was #1 on this day in history.
Hey, nice.
But
But do anything
you-
for love, but you won't do that. You won't do that. What is
But
that?
you know-
It's anal sex. He won't do
but you
anal
know
sex.
what-
That's-
Great music video, great song. Rest in peace, Meatloaf. Fuck, great singer.
Yeah, great singer. Doesn't make music that I listen to, but I can appreciate talent when I see it.
But do you know what song was released on this day in history, and it ties into this episode of Dimensions in Time? Technically, can you have any guesses?
What song was released on this day in history that ties into Dimensions in Time? Is that what you've asked me?
Yes.
Okay. What song was released on this day in history that ties in?
Think
to
about
Dimensions
who
in Time?
introduces the episode.
Okay. Noel, whatever his name.
Yes. And on Noel's
Okay.
house party, who was a character?
I've never seen Noel's House Party.
But you
and
know
I've
the
never
character?
Heard of it.
You know
And
the
I've never
character
heard
who
of
appeared
it.
in Noel's house party because we featured
Awesome.
him on the
Mr.
thumbnail.
Blobby?
Yes.
Mr. Blobby?
Yes.
Mr. Blobby?
And here is a clip of Mr. Blobby knocking over John Barrowman. Oh no!
See, I told you I needed to be protected! I'm gonna get him!
Yeah, Mr. Blobby was released on this day in history, peaked at #1 in the charts on the 11th of December 1993, went down the week after, and then became the #1 song over the Christmas week. An MTV critic said that Blobby tried to kill music with what might be the worst song of all time.
Amazing. You know what's mental? Mr.
Yes.
Blobby has been back on TV so recently. Like, frequently. I've seen him multiple times on TV recently.
Yeah. he recently did that, Basil Brush released a Christmas single last Christmas with a bunch of other puppet characters, and Mr. Blobby was featured in that. I remember as a kid seeing him on the Is This the Way to Amarillo music video. Mr. Blobby is in that right after Jimmy Savile. So like 2 monsters
God.
in a row.
Jesus Christ. God, Is This the Way to Amarillo has just, like, unlocked childhood memories. That song was everywhere. Like,
But yeah, Mr. Blobby, absolutely terrifying.
He is. He's like, how could something be that sexy? It's so scary. But other cool things that happened on the 26th of November in 1865, Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll is published in America. Cool book. You should read it. In 1922, English archaeologist Howard Carter opens Tutankhamun's virtually intact tomb in Egypt. And also on the same year, on the same day in 1922, the first ever successful Technicolor movie, The Toll of the Sea, premieres at the Rialto Theatre in New York City. So as somebody's breaking into Tutankhamun's tomb, they're playing a movie in color for the first time, which is very cool. Then, in 1942, Casablanca, directed by Michael Curtis and starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, premieres at Hollywood Theatre, New York City, and wins the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1943. Have you ever seen Casablanca? I've seen like clips of it, but I've never actually watched it.
Yeah, I've seen all the iconic clips and parodies of it, but I haven't seen the actual thing itself. It's one of those movies, is like one of the most iconic movies ever. But you speaking of Alice in Wonderland reminded me of at one time, like early on in the podcast, where we found out a movie called Alice in Wonderland was like number one at the box office. Yeah, it was a porn movie.
Yeah. The porn movie from the 70s that was just Alice in Wonderland porn parody. What a wild time the 70s were. Yeah. But that's all I've got for the On This Day segment for 1993. So why don't you take us into your extremely long, no doubt, writer's corner for Dimensions in Time.
So this was written by John Nathan Turner and David Roden, and we will talk about John Nathan Turner in the future because he was obviously the producer of the show for like 10 years, and there is a lot of history to go over this very controversial figure of Doctor Who. Well, I don't know when I'll cover it, but it'll be a while. David Roden was the first ever this was his first ever professional script on Doctor Who, or entirely on his own. It's his first ever professional script. His other Doctor Who works include he wrote a short story in 1995, Doctor Who Yearbook. He wrote a short story in 2007 about Martha Jones, and he wrote an audiobook in the same year too. So not a lot of Doctor Who work. This is his first Doctor Who work. He also worked in a lot of soaps like Casualty, EastEnders, Holby City, and Coronation Street. He worked his way up from script editor to producer and finally director, but in 2019 he changed his career path and now works for a Tribe Culture Change, which focuses on creating a long-term cultural change in safety and employee mental health. So he's produced a variety of films such as one about suicide prevention, and obviously his work became a lot more prominent during the pandemic in terms of helping people for mental health. So, seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So for this writing of segment, I thought it would be a good idea to chronicle the ups and downs that Doctor Who fans went through before Dimensions in Time was made, to give context to how exciting this short special probably was to people in 1993. So we start off in November 1988, the 25th anniversary, and Doctor Who gets renewed for their 26th season, which is earlier than expected, which made people very optimistic about the future of the show, because, you know, an early renewal is usually very promising. Around this time, John Nathan Turner also announces he is returning for the new series, despite saying he was going to be leaving earlier. The thing about John Nathan Turner is he was going to leave at multiple points, but the BBC was basically like, we can't find any other we can't find any other producers to cover you, so you have to stay on, because otherwise we might just scrap the show entirely. So he was trying to save Doctor Who for years. Like, I think his earliest point of trying to leave the show was after the 20th anniversary, so he stayed on for like 7 years longer, which is a very controversial figure, but he loved Doctor Who and obviously wanted to try and save it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's commendable. Can you imagine the stress, like, of loving a show so much, but being in charge of it, and knowing that you don't want to be in charge of it anymore, but also knowing that if you leave, the show that you love will die, you know? Like, it's brutal. Yeah. And you're getting, like, blasted by the fans like, every single, like, turn. Like,
yeah. I've obviously just recently went through that with Chibnall. I feel so sorry for Chris Chibnall.
Yeah.
So we cut to March 1989, and rumours start circulating that Doctor Who may be cancelled. The BBC were aiming to have 25% of its programmes made outside of the UK, so many dramas were under scrutiny. Doctor Who magazine says that the reports had no foundation, but several companies had expressed on producing the show independently from the BBC, so Doctor Who might be in safe hands at this point in history. Terry Nation, Jerry Davis. Terry Nation, obviously creator of the Daleks. Jerry Davis, creator of the Cybermen, and Verity Newman, who was the first ever showrunner of Doctor Who. They also bidded to produce the show, with multiple US companies taking interest. So Doctor Who has a bright future.
Repeated. It's interesting how much history has repeated itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Outside US companies taking an interest in wanting to produce Doctor Who because the BBC can't afford to do it anymore.
Yeah. You know? It's incredibly sad how history keeps on repeating itself. Hopefully we're not in this scenario again in the future.
Where it gets cancelled. Yeah.
Hopefully we're with Disney for a while and they don't have too much of a creative input. They just, send occasional notes to Russell.
They just send the paycheck. They just send the paycheck and they don't even watch it.
So in April 1989, Sylvester McCoy agrees to stay on as the Doctor if the show gets renewed for season 27, with Sophie Aldred also saying she'd love to stay on too. So again, Sylvester McCoy is returning for season 27 apparently. In June 1989, it's finally confirmed that a theatrical Doctor Who movie would shoot in early 1990, with the producers citing the success of Tim Burton's Batman as a reason to be optimistic that the movie will be made. The movie was never made.
That's an interesting movie to take.
I know.
Batman. Oh, yeah, we'll definitely be able to make our sci-fi time travel movie. They made Batman.
Yeah. Obviously completely different genres, but if you think about Batman, American audiences would have known Batman as a campy 1960s TV show. So I guess that's a comparison there.
Gritty. Yeah. But were they planning on making the movie gritty and dark?
I don't know.
Yeah.
In September 1989, season 26 starts airing on Wednesdays nights, with a direct competition being Coronation Street for the third year in a row. The future of the series still remains uncertain at this point, especially when the opening episode gets 3.1 million viewers versus Coronation Street, which got 11.3 million viewers. So the BBC pitting against Coronation Street, bad idea.
Yep.
Soaps. Yeah, I don't understand it. It's the same fucking thing every fucking day.
It's the most boring TV ever made.
God, imagine if we watched an episode of a soap drama that crossed over with Doctor Who. Could you imagine?
That would be crazy. I don't even know how that would work. I think the only way that could work is if it was in 3D.
Imagine seeing Pat Butcher in 3D. Jesus Christ. In October 1989, Peter Cregan, head of BBC drama series, said that Doctor Who has lasted 26 years and I can't see any reason why it shouldn't continue. At the same time, the tabloids are printing articles that the show is facing cancellation. So for once, the tabloids are correct and the BBC are lying as usual.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the 23rd of November 1989, 4 years before his charity special releases, Sylvester McCoy records his final ever line of Classic Who through ADR, because the future of the show was still uncertain at this time, but the producers basically knew that this was probably the end. So that was the final ever line, recorded on the 26th anniversary of the show, which is quite nice.
Yeah. Do you know what the line was?
It was the very last line of Survival, we'll put it here, but it's something about the Doctor being like, we're off to face more adventures, there's always a cup of tea to be made. I'm butchering the line, but it's an iconic line. It's a great line.
Just how he delivers it.
Come on, Ace, there's more exploring to do, or something like that.
There are worlds out there where the sky's burning, where the sea's asleep and the rivers dream. People made of smoke and cities made of song. Somewhere there's danger, somewhere there's injustice, and somewhere else the tea's getting cold. Come on, Ace, we're We've got work to do.
So we cut to 1990 now, and the BBC still haven't made a decision on the future of the show, but John Nathan Turner was optimistic that season 27 would air in 1999, early 1999, although it was looking like Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred would actually be leaving at this point. Obviously, we're actors and we need to go on to more projects. We can't be tied down to a show that might not be made in the future.
Yeah.
It looked like the BBC were considering finding a new format for the show for the 1990s, with Peter Cragen saying, there will be more changes than people think. One of the format changes considered was that the show should have 50-minute complete episodes format, like Star Trek, which of course became the format of a show in 2005. So they were thinking of giving the Doctor Who a new format in the 90s, which would have really worked, in my opinion.
Definitely. Would have definitely really worked. Absolutely.
The BBC told the public that news would be announced by the end of July, but nothing came from that. In August, John Nathan Turner officially leaves the BBC, meaning that if the show were to come back, they'd have to find a new producer, which gives them more reason to not renew the show, because finding a new producer is such a fucking hassle.
As if the BBC needed more reason to, not cancel the show. Like,
yeah. But, it's been a year at this point, and we've just been like, yeah, we're going to announce the future of the show eventually, I guess. Could you imagine just sitting there as the Doctor Who fan being like, is my show going to return? Like, that's what the Orville is going through at the moment. The last season aired, I think this last season ended in August, and we haven't heard anything about if there's going to be a season 4, and it's a nightmare just trying to wait. The last season was a fucking amazing, man.
Yeah, so I heard. Too bad I'll never watch it. Ha 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 ha.
Sources within the BBC start saying, expect a renewal announcement by September, but September comes and goes without any mention of a show being renewed or cancelled. And this again, it's just going to repeat. Expect something. The Doctor Who Appreciation Society soon began to campaign for a return of the show in the hopes of pressuring the BBC into making an announcement.
Is this Doctor in Distress?
They might have been involved with Doctor in Distress. But Doctor in Distress was in 1986 after the show went on an 18-month hiatus with Colin Baker's second season, so that might have been part of it. I think Ian Levine, who wrote that song, was the head of the Appreciation Society for a while. But the BBC is like, nah, we're good, thanks. We might make an announcement in April, but I don't know. So 996 people called the BBC on the day of action in late November, which is 996 people. Amazing.
Oh my god.
So yeah, while all this is going on, the production company behind the film keeps saying the movie will be made, which it never did. Just waiting for either a movie to be made or a TV series to come back, and you keep hearing, oh yeah, it's going to come back, or a movie's going to be made as well. You just get nothing.
Constantly teased.
In early 1991, Doctor Who fans began sending the BBC checks in the attempts to fund for a new series, but the BBC returns all of them with notes saying, we still haven't made up our minds. The BBC received £7,500 in checks.
I mean, that's bigger than most of Classic Who's budget put together, so,
True. I could fund an entire 4-part story. In May 1991, the BBC finally announced that the next series will be independently produced, a year and a half after the last episode aired. But the show would still be in limbo until they had found a company to produce it. The TV movie would obviously be made 5 years later. We discussed the TV movie 2 years ago at this point.
God, best
great movie.
Absolutely fantastic movie. It's one of I think it's still our longest episode. It's pushing 5 hours, I think.
Yeah.
In runtime, it is a lot, but I think we have a really, really good discussion about that movie and how it is underrated gem, because it's got a reputation as being bad and being like a B movie and whatnot, and parts of it, sure, yeah, but I think there's so much to love in that Doctor Who movie. I absolutely adore it. Absolutely adore it. You should absolutely listen to that episode if you have not. One of our earliest episodes. So the audio for Scott's end's not superb, but deal with it. Deal with it, you nerd. Deal with it.
Yeah, and one of our longest episodes as well. Just, great movie, great pilot. I wish it went for more, but, we still have Paul McGann at least.
Yeah.
A few months later, the BBC announces that Doctor Who's independent production would begin in 1992. Obviously, nothing ever happened from that, so... by July, rumours begin to grow, saying that 2 brand new adventures have already been shot with a stage actor named David Burton playing the role of the Doctor. In reality, David Burton just wanted attention and just pretended he had just been cast.
Amazing.
So, yeah, he kept on telling people, "Oh yeah, I've shot 2 episodes of Doctor Who. I'm the 8th Doctor."
What's his end game with that? Like
I don't know.
like when the episodes obviously never come out. Was like, oh yeah, I lied. You got me.
And John Nathan Turner at the time was like, why would they shoot 2 episodes and not tell anyone that the show has been made? You don't shoot 2 episodes to make a pilot. It doesn't make any sense. It's way too soon for a pilot to be shot. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, David Burton is just a fucking liar, man.
What an interesting man. I wonder what was going through his head.
By October 1991, fans consider suing the BBC for $30 million, pounds, for fraudulent misrepresentation of license fee payers' monies. The $30 million was considered roughly the budget of 3 seasons fans had lost out on since the show had stopped production. They planned on raising this money by basically selling their toys of Doctor Who figurines.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, just a bunch of nerds upset that Doctor Who wasn't being made and just selling their toys.
Yep, that's a class. Those are some cool people. I bet they're really.
Can you imagine trying to sue the BBC
to make more Doctor Who? I can imagine that. I feel like that's a good idea. Actually, I think we should do that more.
By December 1991, new rumours circulate that an American production company was trying to get the rights to Doctor Who to make X-rated versions of the series starring Rutger Hauer.
There's I don't know if you've ever seen. There's a very famous Doctor Who X-rated parody.
Doctor Screw.
I don't remember what it's called, but I think it was made by Woodrocket, who are a production company that make a lot of weird parodies. Their parodies always end up like going viral. The adverts for them always end up going viral when they come out because they look insane. But yeah, I think there's.
I've seen most of her SpongeBob parody. It's awful.
I'm not gonna ask why you've seen most of it.
The cinema snob used to be associated with Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, and he reviews these porn rip-off movies.
Right.
Like I've seen clips of the E.T. rip-off movie.
Brilliant. I would never got into cinema snob. I just never vibed with his video formats. Always more of a nostalgia critic, dude.
Fair. In early 1992, the BBC tries to shut up the Doctor Who nerds by showing repeats of Doctor Who, starting with the Time Meddler, which we just discussed a few months ago. Great episode.
Yes, very good episode indeed.
Nothing much else happened in 1992, so we cut to 1993, and there's a fairly big announcement that the BBC Enterprises were planning on making a direct-to-video Doctor Who movie for the show's 30th anniversary. The villain of the story would have stopped the regeneration of the fourth Doctor by saving his life, and he would manipulate Earth's politics so that most humans would end up becoming wiped out. He would also have an army of famous Doctor Who villains, including the brand new looking Cybermen, who have claws on their knuckles like Wolverine from the X-Men, and the Cybermen were going to be made by Jim Henson's workshop.
Okay, that bit sounds cool. Jim Henson Cybermen sounds cool, but Wolverine Cybermen sounds really silly.
I'm going to send you an image of the Cyberman.
That's kind of terrifying.
I kind of dig it.
Although, right, like, I like the head. I don't know why it has abs, and I don't know why it's got a belt. Like, the head is cool. I really like the head. The head's, like, straight up like a horror. Like, it looks like a horror thing. Like, it's like this, like, skeleton. Like, it's terrifying. I really like that. There's an image up on screen on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio form, imagine a skeleton with a Cyberman ears. It looks cool, but also the body dumb. The body is the most 90s looking thing. Oh my god! You know what it reminds me of? Oh my god!
What?
Oh my god! What's it called?
Steel?
Yes, Steel.
1997.
1997.
I don't know the character you're talking about, but
Steel. Yes. The suit reminds me of that. Hang on.
I'm looking at images now. Yeah.
Stick an image of Steel up on the screen next to the Cyberman. Same character.
But yeah, the main characters of Dark Dimension would have been the Fourth Doctor, the Brigadier, and Ace, alongside minor appearances from the other surviving Doctors and a lot more companions. Basically, I heard that John Pertwee and Colin Baker were unhappy that they had minor roles, but they were just happy to appear in anything Doctor Who related, you know. They're big fans of Doctor Who and just want Doctor Who to live on, basically, which is... David Bowie and Tom Waits were considered to be cast in roles in this thing, apparently.
That'd be
Could
mental.
you imagine David Bowie in Doctor Who?
I'd love it. I'd love it. Oh, yeah, I'd love it.
The movie sadly got cancelled due to financial issues, but fans have adapted the story into an animation and audio drama, so we could potentially look into the story sometime in the future. And I think that'd be fun to go into it eventually. I don't know when we have time.
Yeah,
but...
don't know when, but I bet it's not good.
My question is, how do they fit EastEnders into it?
Yeah, that's the most important point. Like, how could Doctor Who even exist without EastEnders? You know.
So yes, we are finally on to Dimensions in Time. John Nathan Turner was approached by Children in Need to make the special in the summer of 1993, and they wanted the sketch to be made in 3D for BBC's 3D Week. The 3D Week wasn't that successful, apparently. There was like half an hour of content made for 3D at most. So basically how the 3D worked was that the 3D glasses would have one eye darker than the other, and the idea was that your brain can't process the darker image quick enough, so it's like a 5-second delay or something like that. And you're basically seeing two images walk. So if a person is walking from left of the screen to the right of the screen, your left eye would be seeing the person 5 seconds later than the right eye, and your brain kind of merges the two images together to create a 3D image or something like that. I don't know exactly if that makes sense.
It's like an optical illusion glasses. But I'd be really interested in finding out what people thought about it, like how much did it actually work, because like I remember 3D, like the paper 3D glasses you used to get at cinemas, and they sucked. They were awful. And two, I would really like to try it out. I would really like to get a pair of those 1993 3D glasses, and I would like to watch this special and see it in glorious 3D. I think that would be very fun. And three, why in 1993 did the BBC think that they could pull off 3D?
I don't know. The BBC did a lot of these like gimmick weeks, apparently. I'm not sure why they tried it out, but you know, you can sell these for like £5 for each glasses, and that goes to Children in Need. So there's a fundraising element to it here. As for how the 3D looked, apparently, like according to Nicholas Courtney, who was in the special for like 2 seconds, some bits looked like they were 3D, but the overall effect wasn't that good. The whole reason why the camera is spinning around in every shot is because they have to keep movement for the 3D to work. So that's why you feel seasick at times during the entire special.
I really liked the camera movement. I'll talk about it more in the episode, but it was it's like the one thing I actually liked in this episode.
So Mr. Blobby's daddy, Noel Edmonds, wanted to be involved in the 3D week too, so that's why Dimensions was split into 2 parts, one shown in Children in Need, and then the second part was shown the following night on Noel's house party. So on Children in Need, we basically cut to Noel Edmonds, and we'll get into what he does. He falls down the stairs, it's very funny.
Yeah.
I'm sure we both laughed as he tripped the stairs.
I laughed so hard when he almost fell over, and then he said a Doctor Who joke. It's great.
So we cut to Mike Tucker, who was contacted in late August 1993, and he was a visual effects assistant between 1985 and 1989 on the show. He then became the model unit supervisor on seasons 1 and 2 of the Russell T Davies era. He did a few Moffat era episodes. He won a BAFTA for his work of David the Doctor, which is another 3D anniversary special.
Yeah.
It was released in 2013, and parts of this episode is also released in 2013. Coincidence? I think not.
No, not at all. Not at all.
As for the 3D on Day of the Doctor, the 3D was really fucking good on Day of the Doctor.
I never saw it. I didn't get to see it in cinemas. I only saw it at home, so I did not see it in 3D. Wish I did.
So Mike Tucker is going to come back this year for some of the anniversary specials. So it's funny how he always gets involved with the anniversary, apparently. I like that. Dimensions was Mike's first time as a fully fledged visual effects designer. And there is some interesting visual effects designs in this episode.
Yeah, there is. That's certainly one way of describing them. Yes, for sure.
So Mike only had like a few weeks to prepare for this special, so there's also no budget. This is Children in Need. They aren't making a profit off of this. This is all for charity. This is why the episode hasn't actually been released, because everyone signed on to it under the condition that it wouldn't be made publicly on video, because obviously you'd have to pay fees for them, and so that's why everybody agreed to it, basically, to work for free on this. And there's a lot of fucking actors in this.
There is a lot of people in this, and I only recognize, like, besides the Doctor Who cast who I recognize one person from EastEnders.
A lot of the Doctor Who cast are hard to recognize because it's been like
it's been a while.
25 years for a lot of them. So why is EastEnders in this? Sources differ. Wikipedia says Children in Need asked for a crossover, but John Nathan Turner said it was his idea. I'm not sure who to believe, but I feel like I believe John Nathan Turner's side of it. I feel like he was an EastEnders fan.
Maybe I can see it being both of their idea, or like they both, like, somebody brought it up in a meeting and both of them just were like, yeah, that's a great idea, and nobody had any pushback to it, so they both figured it was their idea, like everybody was just fully on board with the EastEnders idea.
Oh god, but could you imagine being a fan of Doctor Who and the show gets cancelled and BBC are like, yeah, we're still making more episodes though, and then like 4 years later this gets made and it's a crossover with EastEnders. Would you feel disappointed?
I'd be so upset. I'd honestly be so upset.
Yeah, so would I. John Nathan Turner wanted as many actors as possible, so Wendy Richard, who played Pauline on EastEnders, I think I know which one she is. She's one of the ladies who says 2013.
Right. Okay.
So Pauline Richards went around and convinced as many people on the EastEnders cast as possible to join in the show. 34 people were cast, and 32 of them were also working other gigs at the time, so shooting schedule was a nightmare for this.
Oh my god.
You and I have done like no budget movies before.
Yeah.
In college, or you still do no budget movies, but
yeah, it's like
it's a nightmare trying to get people together.
Organizing more than one person to do something, the worst thing in the world. Absolutely. It's like everybody's busy doing other things and nobody makes time to do the one thing. It's awful. It's like, or if you've ever tried playing Dungeons and Dragons, like you can get one game in, you can play one session of Dungeons and Dragons, and then you don't play for 6 months because nobody's schedule lines up.
When COVID shut down the world, my first thought was, fuck yes, I am so happy about this. because I was in the process of trying to get people together for a university film. And so I was so happy that I didn't have to go through this trouble anymore. Because it was a fucking nightmare to figure it out. It was like, this one guy could only do weekends, and this girl could only do weekdays, and it was like, I have to get you two together on the same set. How?
Yeah, I hate trying to schedule out people's things. It's so much like when I was making my college film Rogue Cop, available at youtube.com/@messyoutube if you want to watch it. It's very good. Like I got lucky enough that I managed to schedule everybody pretty well, because I blocked out like 4-5 days of filming, and I got everybody to send me the list of when they were available, and then I pulled up an Excel sheet, and I like properly like worked out everything for like who can film when for how long, and then like you have to run then on set, that you have to make sure you're not running over, you have to make sure people arrive on time, and it's genuinely a nightmare. But like Road Cop is the best scheduling for a set I've ever done in my life, and I've never been able to repeat it. Nothing has ever lined up so well for me as it did with that movie.
Yeah, it is so difficult to get people when they have full-time jobs, you know?
Yeah.
It's so difficult scheduling this podcast sometimes.
Oh yeah, it can be a nightmare. It's also hard, and you know, it's hard when you're doing something so low budget that you have no money, because you can't, like, money's an incentive for people. People will happily call in sick to work or work on the weekend if you're offering them money, because then they're like, oh cool, I'm getting something out of it. If you're like, hey, do me a favor, give me 12 hours of your life, you know, but people are not so keen then.
God, when I made my we'll stop talking about college eventually, but when I made my college movie, I was like, I'll shoot this as quickly as possible because I feel so guilty about this poor woman I'm casting, because I don't want her to be there too long. So I was like, Clint Eastwood, I would do one takes.
Really? Oh my God, no! I always do at least 3 takes. Yeah, always at least. That's, you know, I more lean to the Kubrick way than the Eastwood way. You know, I wanna make sure we've got backups just in case.
You heard it here first. Matthew abuses his stars.
Yeah,
makes them do the same scene over and over again, causes them mental breakdowns
over and over and over again. Yeah. But at the also, I'm the world's best director, so like...
So an alternate title of this story would have been 3 Dimensions in Time, but John Nathan Turner was talked out of it by David Roden. I can see where he's coming from. 3 Dimensions in Time. I think Dimensions in Time is less on the nose.
I think 3 Dimensions on Time is a better title, and I wish it was called that, because this program being in 3D came as a huge shock to me. It being called 3 Dimensions in Time would have been amazing, and I really wish it was called that. That's, you know, it's on the nose, but it's like subtle enough that if you didn't know it was in 3D, you could get away with it. It's like, you know, Dream Drop Distance, Kingdom Hearts is coming back, you know, because it was made for the 3DS, Dream Drop Distance. You got 3Ds in your DS, like, just great, just great titling.
I've explained that fact to you like 3 times by now. I'm like, did you know? Did you know? Do you get the title, Phil? Do you get the title?
Yeah, it's the only good thing in
but
that
also
game.
3 Dimensions in Time works. 3 Dimensions in Time also works because we're visiting 3 different time periods. You know, 1973, 1993, and 2013. The far off future of 2013.
What were the years? It was every 20 years, wasn't it? 73, 93, and 2000. Yeah.
Which I don't know why we didn't make it 30 years for the 30th anniversary. You know, 1963, 1993. Yeah. 2023.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know why they didn't. That would have been like cute. That would have been like a cute thing to do.
Yeah. So the alternative draft of this, Rodin's original draft featured the 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, meeting the Brigadier en route to unit reunion, and then becoming involved in the battle with a crashed spaceship full of Cybermen. But this draft got dropped, I think, because of the budget. it's much easier to film on the set of EastEnders and have a bunch of monsters wander around there.
Yeah, just grab a bunch of costumes from the warehouse, stick them on some people, and go like, just wander around sorted. Like,
receiving a Sea Devil at one point, our favorite villain.
Absolutely, best one ever made.
Janet Fielding, who played Tegan on the show, said she'd come back, but 2 days after saying yes, she changed her mind, as she actively hated how she was portrayed in the show at the time. We've seen her exit episode, Resurrection of the Daleks. She gets knocked out by a
plunger, and then she like freaks out, and the doctor's like, "Lol, bye."
So in 1993, she had stepped down from being the head of a feminist organization. She didn't like the trend of female companions being bimbos, in her words. When she was companion, she hated the idea of being something for the dads to watch.
That's understandable. I completely get where she's coming from. Like, but also, it's a theme that like recurs whenever we talk about classic Who. Like, we just did it like a few days ago with the Terror of the Autons. Where John Pertwee straight up just ignores the information he's given by Joe. Every now and then, classic Who treats women very yucky. Like,
yeah, Joe Grant, who, by the way, was basically a bimbo character to replace a female scientist. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, Janet Fielding's opinion on Doctor Who would change because she obviously just recently came back to Doctor Who, and she obviously records with Big Finish quite often, so she's at least more positive about Doctor Who and how her character is being written.
Yeah, well, I think the show's changed a lot,
Yeah.
And that's a great thing, because honestly, if the show was still the way it was, it would have not lasted.
So during an interview with Nick Briggs, Louise Jameson, who played Leela on the show, seemingly indicates that the script was much larger than what wound up on TV. Kev McCullough, who did the soundtrack of his episode, said that he heard that Noel Edmonds requested it to be cut down, so he had to go back into it and recompose the music. So I'm guessing this... so it's split into 2 parts, 7 minutes each, so I'm guessing they might have been like 10 minutes each, and Noel Edmonds was like, no, I want more screen time, give me more screen time.
Yeah, I can see that being the case.
And I think that's why the story doesn't make any fucking sense. I imagine it made more sense in the original cut.
Maybe, but like, did they cut? Was there like 3 minutes where they explained the story that they went, "This is what we need to cut. This is the bit we cut out." They didn't cut out any of the other stuff. I feel like it doesn't make sense. I feel like it was just a bad script. Like, it was like a first draft, and he went, done.
So I've read like a dozen interviews with people, and they don't understand the plot either. Kev McCullough doesn't understand the plot either, and John Nathan Turner had to explain it over the phone to him. I wonder how he explained it, because I don't understand it. I don't understand how he could explain it in a way that makes sense.
I can get the basic idea. As far as I remember, like, Rani's the villain, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is it's your first time to meet Rani. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting introduction to the character. And Rani is doing, like, let's just imagine like you're breaking up time. And she's like ripped the Doctor out of time to like mess with him or kill him or something, and it's causing him to flip through all of his different versions of himself as he's trying to solve what's going on, because like time is like crumbling. Which, like, that part I can like kind of wrap my head around. Like that feels like a Doctor Who story. It really starts to stop making sense when the companions understand what's going on and can remember what a different person is experiencing.
God, yeah.
And we'll
get to it. But when Leela shows up, she's like, "Oh yeah, I've been cloned, and I was in the form of Romana when it happened," and I don't get it.
Yeah, the companion the companions really complicate this story, which is already a complicated story. But the way they treat the companions is really strange.
Yeah. Some other actors who didn't appear, Anthony Ainley, who played the Master at this point of time, it feels like he should have been involved, but he was rumoured he said no but he wasn't asked apparently. If he was asked, he would have done it, which I'm not sure why he wouldn't include the Master, the Doctor's arch nemesis. Why Rani?
Yeah, it's weird. It is weird.
Michael Gough was also considered as a Celestial Toymaker, which is interesting because he obviously played Batman's butler in Batman. We just discussed Batman like 20 minutes ago.
Batman is very similar to Doctor Who, as we found out. So that makes sense.
But Michael Gough obviously was married to Anarchy Wells, who was Polly, who we discussed recently in The 10th Planet. A good episode we discovered.
Yes.
Finally, John Nathan Turner screened the special in Chicago convention. 800 3D glasses were sold for $5 each. I imagine the Chicago audience was even more confused. Like, who are these random characters?
What is going on?
Like, could you imagine watching a special and not knowing what EastEnders is?
I'm amazed they got 500 people on this in Chicago. Like, who are these people?
But they raised $6,000 from screening it twice, which is a fair amount of money.
That's pretty good.
Well done on them. But apparently people from the BBC accused him from stealing some funds, which is poor guy. It's really sad. He went through this effort of bringing it to Chicago to make more money for children in need, and the BBC are like, "Nah, you must have stolen some money. Come on, pony it up." At the end of the day, he just wanted to do something fun for the show's 30th anniversary, and he doesn't care if people hated it. He didn't care if people hated it because he's obviously not with us anymore. He got a lot of hate mail from his special apparently, which is really upsetting.
It's upsetting, but it is understandable because this is a bad episode. But I say it's understandable. I don't understand hate mail at all.
Yeah.
I think I don't understand the thought process behind hating something so hard. You need to actively attack the creator of it. But I can like, it doesn't seem unrealistic that people would send hate mail after seeing this. You know, that seems like something that people would do.
Yeah, it's really upsetting, and I kind of feel for the guy because he was so. He saved Doctor Who so many times, and people just hated him. I've probably said negative things about him in the past, but I would never send him hate mail. It's just such a pathetic thing to do. Same with like Chris Chibnall, who obviously has received a lot of hate for Doctor Who. He doesn't deserve any of it. He's just a guy who loves the show and tries everything to make it good.
Yeah, did his best. What you gonna do? There's a difference as well. I think it's just people not understanding how to criticize something, because there's a different, like, we're extremely critical of Chris Chibnall, like you can listen to basically every episode of this podcast. We will bring up Chris Chibnall and be like, his episodes suck, but sometimes we do say good things about him, and but at the end, he's a human being. He can write some things well, he can write some things not so well. Sometimes he makes good decisions, sometimes he makes bad decisions. We're just giving our opinions on those decisions. That doesn't affect our opinion of him as a human being. Like,
nothing we say is about him as a human being. If I met him, I would just be like, hey, I'm a big fan of your work.
If I met him, I'd be super, super intimidated. I'd be like, oh my god, it's Chris Chibnall, it's so cool.
He seems like such a nice guy as well.
I hate so much of what you've written, but can we have a photo, please? Because he's lived the Doctor Who dream. He was in charge of the show,
Just finally, as a fandom, I think we need to be better people when we're in communication with people who work for the show.
You can say that about every fandom as well.
I know, it's incredibly toxic fandoms.
Yeah, they're the worst.
So finally, on a happier note, these two parts got over 13 million viewers, but obviously it's because they're packaged with like Children in Need and Noel's House Party, which was apparently the biggest show at the time, Noel's House Party. Mr. Blobby, big hit. Love Mr. Blobby.
He's a superstar.
But do you actually want to get into Dimensions in Time? It's been an hour of filibustering. Do you want to get into Dimensions in Time?
Right, let us begin. Dimensions in time.
God help us
Christ.
all.
I didn't set the coordinates for 1973.
Oi! Is anybody there?
If I didn't know better, I could be convinced that someone has deliberately taken us off course. Ace, what are you doing?
Hey, you're not the doctor.
Yes, I am, Ace. We seem to have slipped a groove in time. Where'd all these people come from? And where are we? What's all this?
Hey, Professor, look at this.
Right, Donna, special discount for you, seeing it's nearly Christmas.
Oh, wicked.
Here, what do you mean discounts? This year's been bad enough as it is without you giving things away.
Don't worry about it, all right?
Hey, do you like that, love?
Clashes.
I tell you, they're going to be the rage in 1994.
What's happening?
Change. You, me, everything. As though someone is rooting through my personal time stream.
But what on earth for?
Earth. Yeah. Excuse me, my good woman, but what year is this?
Oh, you, come back here. He's just nicked an orange.
Shouldn't your Martin be looking after the stall?
He's never here when you want him. Wish my Arthur was still alive. Wait, what do you think you're doing? Stop messing the goods about. Do you want to buy something or what?
Well, considering the quality of everything that you have, madam, I would say that your prices are rather expensive.
So the episode begins with what's his name? Noel Edmond.
Yeah.
With Noel Edmond
Yeah.
reading a newspaper that has got pics of Cindy Crawford inside, which is a disgusting joke from 1993. Cindy Crawford, I googled, was some sort of model / actress person. Never heard of her. This joke has aged terribly.
She did a Playboy shoot, and the joke is that Noel Edmonds is looking at a 3D picture of her naked,
Yeah.
and so the 3D glasses wouldn't work with a still photograph because the 3D technology needs movement for it to work, so the joke doesn't make sense. First joke out of the bat doesn't make sense.
That makes it funny. Then he gets a knock at the door. He goes running to get it, trips up, and is like, "Oh, I need a doctor." Opens the door, and oh my God, there's John Pertwee. What a great little.
God,
it's a fun way to introduce him.
Noel Edmonds did this type of humor on Saturday nights for 9 years, and everybody just watched it. The whole country loved it.
Life was hard without proper internet, you know.
And now we have a Saturday Night Takeaway presented by Ant and Dec. It hasn't changed.
No, people still like crappy Saturday night TV shows, don't they? You know.
Yep.
They bring in so many viewers. I don't understand it. I do understand it. It's because old people live longer now. But John Pertwee and Noel Edmond give a back and forth of terrible jokes that don't make you laugh. Then John Pertwee randomly looks into the camera. He never does this again. It cuts to a close up of John Pertwee staring down the barrel of the lens, just insulting Noel Edmond. I don't remember what he says.
Yeah.
Calls him ugly or something.
Noel Edmonds was like, "Oh, you're the Doctor." It's because it took a while for him to realize that he's Doctor Who from the TV show Doctor Who, and John Pertwee was like, "Oh, I knew he was thick, but I thought we were talking about his waist." Noel Edmonds also has the line of, "What am I doing in 2010?" And am I doing series television? And the Doctor is like, "No, I don't visit Fantasyland. I travel in space and time." The joke is he was presenting Deal or No Deal at the time, probably the worst game show of all time. Have you ever watched Deal or No Deal?
I have watched Deal or No Deal. But when I was a kid, and only if it was on before something else. And I would only I don't think I've ever seen a full episode. I think I've seen a lot of the end of an episode where they're trying to guess what number's in a box, and they're like, that's £50, that's £5, that's £5,000, back and forth for an hour.
Yeah, Deal or No Deal lasted between 2005 to 2016. 11 years of just people selecting boxes. Oh, I want number 2 because my granny lived at house number 2.
Yeah.
And I want number 16 because I was 16-year-old once.
I just talking about Deal or No Deal unlocked a memory for me. Did you ever play the Wii game? there was a Wii game, Deal or No Deal?
No.
Yeah,
but there was a
Wii...
DVD game of Deal or No Deal as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Terrible.
Probably the
terrible
worst.
Game.
I've seen clips of a Wii game, RT game. He's an Irish gamer who plays games sometimes.
Yes, I know RT game.
Yeah, he is hilarious. His review of the game is hilarious. But Deal or No Deal, probably the worst game show of all time. It's just people selecting numbers. That's all it is. How is that riveting? How is that exciting? How is that engaging?
But
it's coming back.
It's a TV show for like grandparents to watch when they're eating dinner and they don't know how to change the channel, and they're still watching it on the old Skybox, like with the old like blue menu that pops up in a grid because they don't know how to change it and they don't want to call up to it. They don't understand the new one, and it's still in standard definition. The CRT TV where you can feel the static on it. Like,
I've seen 20 episodes, like probably 20 episodes of a show for that exact reason. Just at my grandparents' house and just watching Deal or No Deal. It's awful. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's coming back
show.
in 2023, presented by Stephen Mulhern.
Who watches Deal or No Deal, man? What number are you gonna pick? Every episode we'll pick a number and see how much money we're gonna win. But the episode continues as Noel Edmonds something to actually mention here. John Pertwee arriving at the door is not John Pertwee, he is the Doctor.
Yeah.
He's in character as the Doctor. And then Noel Edmonds like, hey, I heard you've got a new program coming out, Dimensions in Time. And the Doctor, played by John Pertwee, goes, yes, I do. And I'm in it, I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking forward to watching it with you. So the Doctor knows he's in a TV show, and he's come out of the TV show to go on to a different TV show to watch the TV show he made.
Yeah.
But what did he know he was making a TV show when he was in it? Or
yeah, God knows. This isn't the first time a character has appeared, a Doctor has appeared in character on a Noel Edmonds show. I think Noel Edmonds' Roadshow was made in the late 80s. I think 1988. He has Sylvester McCoy in character as the Doctor, and he presents bloopers from Doctor Who. So he's presenting bloopers to Sylvester McCoy as the Doctor of Sylvester McCoy messing up the lines to the Doctor.
I don't understand. Why not just have Sylvester McCoy out as Sylvester McCoy?
Because the Doctor needs to watch footage of Sylvester McCoy messing up the lines.
That's so weird. But Noel Edmonds tells everybody to put on their terrible looking 3D glasses and to prepare themselves for the greatest program ever made that they can have an influence on. That'll come back later on. We then cut it.
I will say the idea of 3D television is fun in this way because, if you don't have 3D glasses, it looks two-dimensional. I think that's an interesting way to go about 3D technology. It never obviously works, but it's a good theory in practice. In theory, I guess it's not. I don't know. I don't know what the saying is.
I don't know why they did it. I just feel like it was a waste of time and energy. But put on your 3D glasses now if you're listening because we are beginning the actual episode as we cut to space where it looks like a space station is about to get sucked into a wormhole. But don't worry too much about that as we're then cutting inside
Is that Rani's TARDIS? That could be Rani's TARDIS.
I assume it's Rani's TARDIS, but I don't know why she wants her TARDIS.
Fire hydrant kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know why she wants her TARDIS to look like a fire hydrant. But inside her TARDIS, there are disembodied, decapitated, 3D plasticine heads of the first and the second Doctor. They are terrifying. Although, to be right, they match the likeness pretty well.
Yeah, like it looks pretty decent for a no-budget thing.
Yeah, you can tell that's the first Doctor, and you can tell it's the second Doctor, and they're like floating around 3D. And the idea behind this is that Rani's already captured the first and the second Doctor,
Pickled in time, just like a gherkin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what she says. It's a great line.
Going into Rani's TARDIS, the TARDIS console luckily had just been renovated for a convention a few months prior, but the console room set no longer existed, so their initial plan was to create a miniature and shoot the actors in front of a green screen.
Oh, that would have looked great.
But because the camera had to keep moving for the 3D effect, it would have looked pretty rough.
We just like Autons.
Yeah, we just did a story, Terror of the Autons, which had terrible green screen backgrounds for the entirety of it. So then they decided to contact Andrew Beach, who had built a console room replica for another convention. So a lot of this, what we're seeing, is just built by fans of Doctor Who, which is nice. The floating head models were created by Suitmore and Stephen Mansfield, the two people who created the Herbivores in Curse of Fenric, another episode we covered last year, which the Herbivores looked kind of good. I like the design of the Herbivores, but I don't think the lighting for them was quite right. Rani has a sidekick in this TARDIS, and Ian McKellen was supposed to be Rani's sidekick here, which would have been really interesting.
That would have been insane. That would have been a mental get. Like, that would be an insane casting. For a nothing character as well.
Yeah, but of course, Ian McKellen would appear in the show properly in The Snowman in 2013, 20 years later. Remember when he voices the Snowman in The Snowman?
The Snowman is a solid okay episode.
I haven't seen it since it aired, so I have no memories of it. Apart from Clara smacking the Doctor on the bum when she's climbing the ladder.
Yeah. Spooky Snowman. But after Rani's basically chatting like she's gonna kill the Doctor or do something with him, and then we cut to the intro, and the intro is the best part of this episode. It's super sped up, super funky. It's crazy. There's like a robot singing at the end. It's really cool. It's extremely 90s.
Yeah, just a robot starts beatboxing at the end of it, apparently. David Rodin, who obviously wrote it, was friends with Pet Shop Boys and asked them to recreate the theme song, but they weren't available. David Tennant was also a fan of the Pet Shop Boys. You can tell this because David Tennant took his acting name from Neil Tennant, who was one of the Pet Shop Boys. So it's interesting how things go full circle in Doctor Who.
That is. Yep. Everything's related to everything. But we then
sorry. One of the actors who played an alien in this episode was apparently in a band called Cybertech, and he was like, I made this mixtape of like Doctor Who inspired music, and John Nathan Turner was like, that's perfect for the episode. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it is. It's fantastic. And we then cut to Tom Baker, who is standing in a netherless void full of shapes. Like it's like the 3D dimension in The Simpsons.
Yes.
You know, like
the same thing.
Yeah, where there's just weird shapes everywhere. And he's definitely not reading a script in front of him. That would be crazy. As he's talking into what looks like a picture of a microphone. It doesn't look like a real microphone. And he's basically just explaining the plot, where he's like, the first and the second Doctor have been taken by Rani. My other Doctors are in danger. Oh boy, I hope they're all going to be safe. He to me, it seems like he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. Tom Baker definitely does not want to be there. He's only there because it's obviously for charity. If you know the story behind the 5 Doctors, he infamously doesn't want to appear there. This is technically his last time playing the Doctor on screen, because when he returns in Day of the Doctor, he's not playing the Doctor, he's playing the Curator. So this is technically the last appearance we've seen of the 4th Doctor on the actual TV show itself.
Mental. That's crazy. There's a lot of last appearances in this special.
Yeah. What do you think of the 4th Doctor's costume? Because I think it looks fantastic. I love this costume.
Yeah, I like the burgundy red that it is. It's very cool looking.
Yeah, it looks like what the 4th Doctor wore in season 18, but it looks like it's just been enhanced, and it looks really good on Tom Baker here. Tom Baker turns his face, and he reveals he has a question mark shaped bruise on the side of his cheek. I don't understand why.
No idea. No idea. And it's so subtle as well. Like you can like barely see it. Like it's just like a little, like you can blink and you miss it. Tiny little detail.
John Nathan Turner loved the question mark motif, so this is why I guess every actor who had the question marks motif hated the question mark motif. So I imagine Tom Baker was very angry to have it tattooed on his face, basically.
Yeah,
but
probably.
as he's talking about the first and second Doctor, we see their decapitated heads flying towards the camera, into space and into the wormhole.
Yep, which I'm sure means something to somebody.
Could you imagine being high and just watching a decapitated head of William Hartnell flying towards you in 3D?
That I can not. I'm not someone that's ever done drugs.
Yeah, true. You're a pretty square dude, aren't you?
If you're looking at me right now, you'll be able to tell that I've never touched a single substance in my life. So I don't even know what it would be like to I couldn't possibly imagine. So sorry, I have nothing to add to that. It's like an impossibility for me. So the episode continues. So we cut to Rani, who is talking more gibberish. Like, we're gonna get the Doctor now. Let's fire at his TARDIS, and she like shoots a laser beam at it or something, and that causes the TARDIS to land in the 1970s as the Sylvester McCoy comes out. Instantly also, fantastic as the Doctor, and Ace as well.
And also, the Rani reveals that she has a Cyberman inside her roundels, and also
and a Time
Lord. And I don't understand. I guess
just move past it. Just keep going, because they're not going to tell you, and it's never coming back. So just keep going.
I mean, they technically do come back because they attack all the Doctors later on.
No, but not that one, not the one trapped in the TARDIS. Like that one's just on display, I guess. I don't know.
But why hire a second actor to play a Time Lord? I don't understand.
Who knows? But Sylvester McCoy comes out the TARDIS with Ace, and the both of them are fantastic together. They're instantly just likable and lovable as these characters. I love Sylvester McCoy stepping out the TARDIS in front of a very British-looking boat going, China.
God, it just makes you wish you could see more of the Seventh Doctor and Ace, because it just seems like they've just never stepped away from the show. It's just we're instantly back into character, and it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. They're so great together. And then they realize that they're not actually in China. They're in 1973 somewhere in England. Then the screen gets all weird, and suddenly Ace is with Colin Baker's Doctor instead. And, Colin Baker pretty much has a grip immediately on something going wrong. He's like, no, I'm still me. We're just getting messed with right now. Ace, don't worry about it. And they start walking through a market, which I assume is in EastEnders.
Yes.
And Ace starts to try on a jacket and starts chatting with, I assume to be EastEnders characters. I don't know. Yep. I've never watched an episode of EastEnders.
I think I recognize them, maybe.
I only recognize one dude, and he comes in part 2. And then the screen glitches again, and now it's John Pertwee and who's the redhead? What's her name?
Mel.
And Mel. Yeah, I know Mel. She was in Jodie's episode.
Yeah.
John Pertwee and Mel. And John Pertwee is like, Mel's like, what's going on? And John Pertwee's like, oh, they're changing you and I. Don't worry, it's still you and I. What? What? That makes no sense. Yeah. Mel is still Ace? What? Like the Doctor, I get the Doctor makes sense. The Doctor is one person in different people's bodies because his body changes. Ace and Mel are two separate human beings.
Yeah. I've seen this probably like 50 times over the last 15 years or something, and I've never understood what the fuck is going on, especially with the companions. How does this make sense?
It makes
understand.
The companion stuff makes no sense. It makes it crumbles the entire semblance of a plot of a coherent plot that they were trying to make, because the companions understanding and having a shared consciousness, complete gibberish.
When Leela comes along near the end of the episode, she's like, "Oh, I've been cloned, but I was in the form of Rani. I was in the form of Romana, and I don't understand. I just don't understand. But when Susan appears in a bit, she's like, "Who are you? Where am I? You're not my grandma. You're not my grandpa." And it's like,
Yeah.
what? And that makes no sense. What's going on? So the companions are aware of a switch, except for Susan, who's too dense to not understand a switch. But sometimes,
to be fair, that's accurate for Susan. Like,
but when we meet for Romana later on in part 2, she's in a different location entirely, away from the Doctor.
yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's just gibberish. They were just adding in companions to add in companions, and they didn't think too hard about it. But the Doctor and Mel start chatting with some ladies. It goes on like a little bit of a back and forth, and then they're like, "Wait, what year are we in?" And they go, 2013. Yeah. Which is obvious. Like, I could tell just by looking that this was 2013. It was when everybody was like, "Let's all dress like we're in the 1950s again," you know.
John Pertwee saying, "Madam, what year is this?" And the reply of 2013 is like the most memorable line from this whole special. It's like my favorite line for some reason. I just love it. It's just so, it's so weirdly delivered.
It is very weirdly delivered. Speaking of things that are just strange in this episode, we then cut to a lady talking about the assassination of Kennedy. She's like, I think it's because they were set, because Kennedy must have been, he was what? So what year was Kennedy assassinated? Sometime in the
Kennedy
60s.
was assassinated on the 22nd of November, 1963, the day before Doctor Who premiered.
Yes. Yeah, so this is set in 1973 because the lady goes, "Oh, it was 10 years ago that he was killed," and the other lady's like, 10 years ago already? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, okay.
But
I know nothing about EastEnders characters, but I'm pretty sure that's Peggy Mitchell, who also made a cameo at the end of Series 2, the David Tennant episode Doomsday, as Peggy Mitchell on EastEnders. We're sitting around watching EastEnders. And if you remember, it's the episode with the ghosts, and Peggy Mitchell turns to one of the ghosts, and she's like, "Get out of my pub." So in the universe of Doctor Who, EastEnders is a television show, but it's also a real location, and these characters are real.
Also, in the universe of Doctor Who is a TV show that the Doctor is aware of that he's on, and sometimes he goes and watches his TV show with other people on a TV show.
So one of my theories is, this episode takes place entirely within the land of fiction, which is from the Mind Robber, where the Mind Robber traps the Doctor in like Rapunzel, in the Book of Rapunzel. So I think maybe the Mind Robber is involved somehow, and the Mind Robber.
I can dispute this. I can dispute
this.
No,
the Mind
this
Robber.
This doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because at the start of the episode, John Pertwee said he didn't deal with fantasy. He didn't do fantasy tales. All his stuff was based on time travel and real science. He does not do fantasy gibberish. So it can't be. This has to be set in the realm of reality. He does not do fiction. He does not go into fantasy.
But maybe the whole Noel Edmonds part is in the land of fiction, and maybe the Doctor is fiction in that scene.
No, he's not. He says he's the Doctor. He remembers doing everything. You know, it doesn't work. This is a canon piece of Doctor Who. This is
God.
We then cut to Colin Baker walking with Susan, which is a very pleasant surprise, and somehow the last time we've seen Susan on screen.
Yeah.
Maybe, hopefully not forever. Hopefully she actually does come back at some point.
There is rumors.
There is rumors
that she might return in, because Russell T Davies did a winky face on a post talking about Susan.
I really hope she does, because we need, like, just to say goodbye to the character properly and to you actually have her on the modern version of the show.
Because when Susan made her come back in the Five Doctors, Peter Davison basically says, "Oh, hi, Susan. Anyway, what were we talking about?" Like, he completely ignores Susan, even though when Susan left, there's a big deal about it, because, the Doctor makes a whole speech of, "One day I shall come back," and It's like we've never seen
one of the best
Black come into
speeches.
fruition,
One
though.
of the best speeches in Doctor Who. Like, yeah. Yep, we don't.
Yeah.
It's very sad, but Colin Baker's walking with Susan, who's very confused where everything is. She's confused that Colin Baker isn't William Hartnell, even though she should understand what regeneration is, because she is a Time Lord. But we then cut to Sarah Jane
and
dressed
also
as
Time Lords
Mario.
recognize each other through regenerations as well.
Yep. So we then cut to Sarah Jane dressed as Mario, walking down the street as like a really realistic looking train drives by. I don't understand the point of the train. Why did they add that in? That just feels like a waste.
The train is to show over in the year 2013. It's a nice little touch to make it more futuristic, because otherwise, it's
just yeah.
No.
Otherwise,
yeah,
it's
I like
not 2013.
Yeah, I like Sarah Jane's outfit, because if you remember in The Hand of Fear, she's basically dressed in like Andy Pandy dungarees.
Yeah,
and
yes,
Liz Sladen is quoted as saying, I like my outfit in this story because it makes sense that Sarah Jane would have gone mad after all the adventures she had.
Absolutely, and I love the outfit she had in that episode. I love her Mario outfit; it's great. But she notices John Pertwee, which, let's just not worry about how other companions are teleported next to the Doctor and she wasn't, whatever. As she walks down the street with John Pertwee, and he's like just basically giving more exposition that they're getting transported 20 years from 1963, 70, 83. Is it 83? 83? 60? 70, 73. It's not 63 because they chose 73 instead of 63, even though 63 would make more sense because that's the year the show started. No, it's 1973, 1993, and 2013. Jesus Christ. That's basically all the information we get from then. We then cut to Rani.
So sorry, I interrupt you. Liz Sladen was apparently sick all over the set of EastEnders. She had eaten some bad prawns the night before. And whenever she watched EastEnders after this, she'd just laugh to herself because she's like, I puked over there and nobody knows. Apparently,
Amazing.
John Pertwee was very difficult on set. He had difficulty remembering lines. And if you ever see the bloopers, most of the bloopers are on him. So it's quite sad to see, because John Pertwee is usually very good with his lines, and here he's struggling, apparently. He kept on saying Liz instead of Sarah. When Liz was sick, he apparently turned around and said, "Oh, Liz always does this," which made her very upset, which is understandable.
Yeah.
He was apparently very rude about Wendy Richards' appearance, who played Pauline on EastEnders, and he was like, "Oh my God, Pauline looks terrible." It's like, oh Jesus.
I guess he was just a grumpy old man at this point.
Yeah.
On that day, he just didn't want to be on set, didn't understand the story, wanted to go home, was tired. He's like in his like mid 70s right now, when this was getting filmed. So, I can get him not remembering lines in his mid 70s.
Yeah.
Like Hartnell couldn't remember lines, and he was like 50.
Yeah. But yeah, it's quite sad to hear John Pertwee being quite difficult. If you ever read Elizabeth Sladen's autobiography, John Pertwee was a difficult person in real life. He was lovely 1 minute. He was kind of, I don't know, he sounds very difficult sometimes, so it's sad.
Yeah, it is, but oh well. We then cut to Rani and her friend very briefly as they're like, ha ha ha, the Doctor's such an idiot, he's never going to figure out what's going on, send the aliens. As suddenly aliens start invading everywhere in EastEnders land, and we cut then to the fifth Doctor, as he's running around with... Is he with companions in this one? He is. Which companions are he with?
He is
the camera's
with
going
Perry
so fast.
and Nisa.
Yes. Who are two companions that I don't remember. But hey-oh, I'm glad they're there. And this is the bit where
we haven't covered a Nisa episode. We've covered Perry in this Colin Baker Cyberman episode. She's also going to be
I remember the name.
She's also going to be in Caves of Androzoni, which we're covering in May. So look forward to that.
Exciting.
So yeah, basically every Doctor Who villain appears here. There's even a Time Lord, except for the Daleks.
That is true.
So if you ever look at the behind the scenes footage, you will see there's a Dalek on the set, but Terry Nation apparently refused the use of the Dalek. So my theory is, they showed the tape to Terry Nation, said, would you allow us to use the Daleks in this story? And Terry Nation was like, I don't understand what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Please don't have me involved here. Never call me again.
Yeah, and the aliens don't do anything. They stand in windows. Some of them are very clearly puppets in the windows, and they're just kind of walking down the street chasing the Doctor. This is where the camera actually gets pretty interesting, because it becomes handheld, and we're following the Doctor running through the streets, and we start spinning around him as he's talking with these two people from EastEnders, which, as you said, is for the 3D effect. For me, it makes me feel of a student movie that's watched too many like Spielberg films and are trying to recreate it. But it's a cool effect, you know?
I think the woman they stop is Pat Butcher, I think.
No idea. That name means nothing to me.
You know, the famous character Pat Butcher, she died in that one episode of EastEnders.
All right. I know literally nothing about EastEnders. So, and then they continue running on until they get like trapped. I guess they just kind of stop at a fence. They're not even really trapped. They're just like, they get locked in. As they get like surrounded by various different monsters throughout Doctor Who's history. And Rani shows up and she's like, we're going to kill you, Doctor. Ha ha ha. And that's the cliffhanger for part 1.
Yeah. Rani's apparently been just drinking a few pints at the Queen Vic.
Yeah, she was just in the pub.
And apparently her gun was falling to bits and was dropped on the day of the shoot and had to be super glued together, which doesn't surprise me.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. We then cut out of the TV back to Noel Edmonds as he's like, oh, by the way, you can influence next week's episode by calling up these numbers and voting for who you want to help save the Doctor. Is it Mandy or Big Ron? Mandy is some dorky looking little girl, maybe like 10 or 11 years old. Big Ron is old dude with a cool looking beard and no hair. And when I saw Mandy or I saw Big Ron, I was like, Big Ron's got to win. Why would anybody vote for the boring girl when they could vote for somebody called Big Ron? I don't
Yeah, we did actually shoot the two endings. There's behind the scenes footage again of Big Ron saving the day, and so calls cost 39p a minute, and they've raised over £1,000 with this phone line, which is a huge number, honestly.
It's a huge number, especially for it to happen overnight. You know.
Yeah.
Like there was one day that the lines were open, and so that's pretty impressive, and that is where the episode ends for part 1, and then we begin part 2.
You two put on your glasses if you bought your glasses. Everybody here in the great house, kindly put on your glasses. There we go. Lovely. So Mandy will be helping the Doctor in this episode. For the benefit of you who missed part 1, this is part 2, and the evil Rani has got the 5 Doctors in a time loop. It better be worth it to look this stupid, doesn't it? Where were we with the story so far? The evil Rani has got the 5 Doctors in a time loop in the East End. Will the evil Rani win out against the Doctor and Mandy, or will the Doctor survive to fight another day? You decided!
Episode 2 of Dimensions in Time begins with the conclusion to the vote for Mandy or Big Ron, which is hilarious because the effect they've got for the vote counter immediately messes up when they bring it up on screen and you see the final result before they do the big reveal. I don't know if you caught that for like a single frame. You see the final result and then the TARDIS like blanks and they go back and then it counts up again, which is amazing. But Mandy won the vote with 56%, with 18,815 votes, while Big Ron got 14,415 votes, which is just a travesty. But don't worry, Mandy definitely has a huge role to play in this episode. Not a blink and you miss it cameo. That would be crazy. And Noel Edmonds chats a bunch of crap very briefly about Doctor Who, trying to recap what happened, and even he can't recap what happened in the episode. And then the episode begins.
And the entire time, the audience is just basically laughing about how silly this whole thing is. Yeah. It's like, Doctor Who is like one of your biggest exports, BBC. Why are you making fun of your own show here? It's really sad. It's kind of really sad, you know?
Yeah. But also hilarious. Where Rani's got the Doctor trapped, and she's like, okay, Doctor, I've got you. Now I'm going to send all the aliens away, and I'm just going to chat to you for a minute because you're trapped. And then the Doctor goes, I'm not trapped. Well, starts pushing on his temples, turns himself into John Pertwee, simultaneously transports his 2 companions to turn into a different companion, who then goes running up to attack Rani.
This is your first experience with Liz Shaw, the companion before Joe Grant.
Yeah, it is. It is my first experience with Liz Shaw.
So Caroline John didn't understand the plot, and neither did John Pertwee. They weren't told they were shooting 2 endings, so all of a sudden a big man runs in and saves her. And a young woman comes in and saves her, and she's like, I don't understand, or can we just not make a mind up about the plot? She said there's apparently a missing shot where Liz would shout for the Doctor to duck, and says the scene doesn't make sense without that shot.
The scene doesn't make sense. The scene just doesn't make sense, because out of nowhere, the Doctor's turned himself into John Pertwee. Already, okay, that could make sense. Him turning his 2 other companions he had with him into Liz Shaw makes 0 sense. Liz Shaw then going, oh, I'm just gonna beat Rani up, and bombing it towards Rani makes no sense. John Pertwee hiding behind a fence makes no sense. And then a tiny girl running up being like, oi, leave her alone, and pulling Liz off Rani, which somehow saves them and summons Unit to come in and drive and save the Doctor. Makes no sense as well. Then none of it makes sense. It's gibberish.
I think the intent here is supposedly Liz Shaw is being mind controlled, and that's why she goes across the street, but she's fighting the mind controlled.
That makes it doesn't make sense either. It doesn't make sense. It's just bad. It doesn't make sense. But so
Mike Yates comes in Bessie, and apparently it's either Mike Yates or Benton. I always get those 2 mixed up. But John Pertwee was apparently upset with Richard Franklin for stalling Bessie's engine. And he was also apparently upset with the 3rd Doctor was acting cowardly in this special.
Yeah, hiding behind a fence, not going up and using his karate. Yeah. It's understandable. I'd be upset as well. But that's like
one of the last things. That's one of the last things we see the 3rd Doctor do on the screen. Just hide behind a fence, basically.
Yep. And they drive up to a helicopter that's got the Brigadier in it. John Pertwee runs up to it, and as they get out, Colin Baker comes out of the helicopter, which is, as you said, the only time on screen we see Colin Baker and the Brigadier together, which is crazy. And they both look so old.
For Colin Baker, it's only been like 7 years or something. So, I would say John Pertwee ages the best out of this special. He obviously looks much older, but he still looks like the Doctor, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Nicholas Courtney was very happy to finally work with the 6th Doctor, but was terrified about being in that helicopter. I almost called it a teleport for some reason, because there's so many teleporters in this episode. He was terrified about being in a helicopter with no doors. Courtney had vertigo, and with a helicopter weaving and ducking, and the cameraman telling him to lean further out the helicopter, he was just terrified about the whole ordeal, and Nicholas Courtney went straight to the pub afterwards. I imagine he went to the Queen Vic and got yelled at by Peggy Mitchell.
Yeah, absolutely. We then cut away to a random EastEnders scene. I don't understand the point of this scene, where the one guy from EastEnders I recognize, which is blue shirt, bald dude, He's like, if you search EastEnders, I guess he must be EastEnders. Like, he's called EastEnders, and like the show revolves around him or something. But he's like walks into this.
I think his name is Phil. I know his last
Phil
name.
EastEnder.
No.
Phil EastEnder.
Phil Mitchell, right? His name is Phil Mitchell, and every time his show trends on Twitter, his character appears in the thumbnail.
Yes,
and it's the same shot of him looking disappointed in a cafe every fucking time. It's like, is he just in a cafe every episode, just disappointed about what's going on in the plot?
I assume every episode is the same episode on repeat, and people that watch soaps just don't notice.
These two EastEnders go to a garage, and Lala Ward as Romana is here for some reason. She's away from the doctor.
Somehow she got away from the doctor, but the only thing I could think that she's in the garage is because it kind of reminded me of the first Doctors, the like shed where the TARDIS was in An Unearthly Child. That's what that reminded me of, and so I was like, maybe that's why she's there.
God knows. But you know who came along to the set of EastEnders with Lala Ward?
Who?
Her husband at the time, Richard Dawkins, which is so weird to think of him on the set of EastEnders.
Richard Dawkins, the atheist dude?
Yeah. Huh. Lala Ward was married to Tom Baker for a few years, and then she went on to marry Richard Dawkins. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what to do with that information. Cool.
and Richard Dawkins had sex with Mr. Garrison on South Park. I wonder how she feels about that South Park episode.
Probably fondly. I don't know. I haven't thought about Richard Dawkins since I was a teenager. But then we go. We cut to. Romana makes a terrible Doctor Who joke, and then she's walking past the pub and she gets dragged into it, which makes a man in a hat rub his nose and go, I've never seen someone get dragged into a pub before. Ha ha ha, comedy.
I kept on missing when she gets dragged in, because as she's being dragged in, two characters walk right in front of the camera as she's being dragged in. So for the longest time, I just didn't see I didn't see Virani's hand come out of the door to grab her. I don't know what I thought. I just imagined she went in. I don't understand why they have two characters walking in front of the camera at that point.
Speaking of things that I don't understand, suddenly the Doctor's on a boat and he's getting yelled at by a lady.
He is on the boat for the TARDIS lad in front of him, and he is with Victoria, who we recently saw in The Enemy of the World. Famously, Victoria did a lot in that story, and she does a lot here. She asks the Doctor, who was that awful woman? As she walks down the stairs. Deborah Wathlin had just broken her arm the week before she shot this, and she had to walk down slippery steps with one working arm, so she was terrified for the entire shoot.
Brilliant. Yep, absolutely brilliant. They go into the TARDIS, and out of the TARDIS comes Sylvester McCoy, and this is where things get really weird, because then Rani's TARDIS also arrives, and out of that TARDIS comes... God, which companion's this?
Leela.
Yeah, this is... Leela comes out of it, and then she starts talking to the Doctor about how inside Rani's TARDIS is a bunch of cloning machines, and she got cloned, but she got taken by Rani when she was in the form of Rana, whatever her name was. Romana, when she was taken in the form of Romana, which means Leela and Romana are the same person.
Yeah, I think.
Somehow, I guess. But which is different because the companion that was just with the Doctor, the Victorian lady, she's not Leela or Romana, but she's also nowhere to be seen anymore. She's just kind of vanished.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't make sense.
But apparently the Rani's plan is to clone a bunch of humans and to alter the course of evolution.
she's got like every species in the universe except for humans, and she's gonna just manipulate the universe to her whims, which I feel like if you've got every species but humans, you can already do that.
So talking about Louise Jameson as Leela in this scene, she had 2 kids at this point and refused to wear the minimal clothing that Leela wore in the series. If you ever see a picture of Leela, she's basically pretty much in like, you can see her belly button the entire shoot. It's interesting choice of clothing for Leela, because she's basically like a caveman. She's like a space cave woman.
Right.
And so we originally gave her an outfit,
quote unquote, for the dads. My God, she's showing a lot of cleavage.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yep. So we originally gave her an outfit that looked like a sack, like a potato sack. According to her, it made her look like a lump of potatoes. Sylvester McCoy loved working with her and even said that when he was younger, he'd often tune into the Leela episodes purely because he found her attractive, which is interesting because I didn't know Sylvester McCoy was a Doctor Who fan beforehand. But I guess he's not technically a fan of Doctor Who, he's more of a fan of Louise Jameson.
He's a fan of Leela, yeah. Yeah, but this continues to not make sense as they walk into the TARDIS to get some tools, and then suddenly they're not in the TARDIS anymore, and Ace is back, no longer Leela, and also K9's here, and there's a bunch of cables and technology everywhere. Honestly, it happens so suddenly, out of nowhere, and the Doctor's spinning and twisting the dials, and then he connects with all of the different versions of himself, and they all like chant a saying, and then that causes Rani's TARDIS to explode, which frees the first and the second Doctor's disembodied heads from the wormhole. And then the Doctor's like, you can't get rid of me, I win, and goes into his TARDIS and the show's over.
You know what you sounded like there? You know what you sounded like? You sound like a 5-year-old when he's trying to come up with a new story. And the 5-year-old's like, I'm in their Cyberman, I'm in the 7th Doctor's fair, I'm in Ace's fair, and then K9's here. And it just never ends. It's just a list of things at this point.
Yes.
So yeah, K9 is here, and he apparently worked completely fine during photo shoots and rehearsals.
Wow.
And he immediately started falling apart when the camera started rolling.
That's
and had
K9.
to be pulled by string for the final shot.
That's K9. That's the K9 I know and love. That's our boy. My God. What a garbage episode this is. It makes zero sense. Like it's I'll give it one thing, right? It wastes no time. It flies by. There's 17 minutes and it will be over in a blink. Other than that, it's bad. It doesn't make sense, and it's really bad. It's funny. It's funny how bad it is. Like, it's so bad that you could enjoy it, but like, just atrocious. Just atrocious. Absolutely atrocious.
Oh, and YouTube is automatically playing Time Crash, which is a much better Children in Need special where the 5th Doctor and the 10th Doctor meet.
I remember I watched that one live. I watched that live. I remember watching that live.
You know, that's like 15 years apart. Like, it's mental to think about. Only 15 years passed between that. But yeah, Dimensions in Time, absolutely terrible. It's more of a novelty thing. But, you know, imagine being a fan in 1993. You know, you're waiting for Doctor Who to return, and you get this. Yeah,
I'd be so upset.
With EastEnders.
I'd be so upset. Not only a crossover with EastEnders, a crossover with EastEnders that has nothing to do with EastEnders and is incomprehensible. Like, imagine being a fan of EastEnders and finding out you're getting an extra special, and then this is what you get. You're like, what the fuck? Like, it's just upsetting everybody. Who was this made for? Like, you know, they don't. This is it's just terrible. It's terrible on every single front. Even the people involved don't know what it's about. It is garbage. Yeah, absolute garbage.
Imagine if this was the last piece of Doctor Who that was ever produced. Like, what
amazing.
A way to go out. It's just, it's embarrassing, but at the end of the day, it made a lot of money for children in need. So
yeah, it was for a good cause. You know, yeah.
I definitely wouldn't have sent any hate mail to John Nathan Turner because that's pathetic. But you know, back to that again. Somehow we made a 2-hour podcast on Dimensions in Time, my friend. a 17-minute special from 1993, a crossover of EastEnders.
It'll be slightly less than 2 hours once I cut out the 17 minutes of us watching the episode. You know, it'll be like an hour 50, an hour 40 something or something like that. But yeah, way longer than it should be. Way longer than it should be to talk about something that is less than 20 minutes long and this bad. It is also currently 1 a.m. that we are recording at. I am so tired. So you can find us.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. We've been podcasting for like 4 hours at this point. It's been a long evening for us.
It has.
We've mediocre Doctor Who.
Yeah, not even good Doctor Who. A lot of talking. I cannot wait to sleep. I've got so much editing to do tomorrow. But we have got. You can find us on Twitter. I'm falling apart. You can find us on Twitter at Watch This Doctor, on Facebook at Who Watches Who. This podcast is available in video form on YouTube at Who Watches Who, youtube.com/@WhoWatchesWho. It's also available in audio form wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search Who Watches Who or click one of the many links in the description. There's also links on our social media pages that will take you to the RSS feed, the Apple Podcast page, the YouTube page, everything like that. You can leave a comment below or send us an email at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com with your thoughts on Dimensions in Time. Is this the best episode of Doctor Who ever? I think so. And we will read it out next week in our News Roundup podcast.
And you know what else is happening in just 2 days from now, from when the episode has been uploaded? We are actually meeting the stars of Dimensions in Time.
We are.
You're meeting the one person who was fortunate to not be involved in this production.
Yes, because this Sunday is Comic-Con in Aberdeen, and me and Scott are going to it. There's a lot of classic Who going there. I'm super excited. Also, kind of nervous to meet Paul McGann. Going to be a great time. Going to get a photograph. Going to have a wonderful jam. Just hyped for it. But next week we are recording our news podcast. It's been another quiet month for Doctor Who, so I don't know how much we're going to have to talk about. But until then, bye-bye.